You've probably been told your whole life that holding your breath is all about oxygen, how much you have, how fast you burn through it, like a tank slowly running dry. That's actually wrong. The alarm that eventually forces you to gasp for air has almost nothing to do with oxygen running low, and understanding what it's really tracking explains something genuinely disturbing: how some of the most experienced swimmers, lifeguards, and freedivers in the world have drowned without ever appearing to struggle. No thrashing, no waving, no warning anyone standing right next to them could see. It sounds almost impossible. Someone trained, someone who has been in water their entire life, simply vanishing beneath the surface without a single sign of distress. But it happens, and it happens because of a very specific, very human mistake, one that quietly disables the single most important warning system your body has. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that alarm is actually built to detect, why some people can hold their breath for 8 minutes, while most of us tap out in under a minute, and why the trick that seems like it should buy you extra time is one of the most dangerous things you can do in water. Here's the simple version. Every single cell in your body is constantly producing a waste gas called carbon dioxide, just from the ordinary business of staying alive, the same way a car engine constantly produces exhaust just from running. Normally, that carbon dioxide leaves your blood every time you exhale, so smoothly and so continuously that you never think about it, not even once, across your entire life. When you hold your breath, that exit door slams shut. But here's the thing nobody really considers. Your cells don't get the memo. They keep producing carbon dioxide at exactly the same rate they always were, and because it now has nowhere to go, it starts piling up in your bloodstream. Think of your blood like a small, sealed room slowly filling with smoke. Deep in your brainstem, in a region called the medulla, there are tiny, extraordinarily sensitive detectors built specifically to sense that smoke. Not to check whether there's still enough fresh air left. That's a separate, much less important measurement your body barely pays attention to at first. Their entire job is to detect the smoke itself, the rising carbon dioxide. And as that gas builds up, it makes your blood very slightly more acidic, a chemical shift these detectors can pick up almost instantly. As the smoke thickens, those detectors sound a louder and louder alarm, sending an escalating stream of signals back to your brainstem's breathing control center. Eventually, your diaphragm, the big dome-shaped muscle beneath your lungs, starts twitching and jerking on its own, trying to force a breath even while you're actively fighting to hold on. Those small, involuntary spasms in your chest and stomach, partway through a breath hold, that's your diaphragm attempting a coup. That clawing, burning need to breathe that shows up around the 30 or 60-second mark. That's not your oxygen running out. That's carbon dioxide piling up in a sealed room and an alarm system doing exactly what it evolved to do. So if the alarm is about carbon dioxide, how does anyone manage to hold their breath for minutes at a time? This is where your body pulls out a second system, a genuine backup, called the mammalian dive reflex, and it kicks in the moment your face makes contact with cold water. The first thing that happens is your heart rate drops, sometimes by as much as half, almost instantly. A slower heart burns oxygen more slowly, which buys your body time before the smoke-filled room reaches a dangerous level. At the same time, blood vessels in your arms and legs squeeze shut, a process called vasoconstriction, redirecting blood inward to protect the organs that matter most in an emergency, your heart and your brain. Your fingers and toes are, in this moment, expendable. Your brain is not. There's a third piece of this system that almost nobody knows about, your spleen. Most people think of the spleen as an organ that quietly deals with old blood cells and helps fight infection. And most of the time, that's exactly what it does. But your spleen is also a reservoir, a storage tank for a reserve supply of oxygen-rich red blood cells. During a prolonged breath hold, especially in people who train for this, the spleen physically contracts and releases that reserve straight into your bloodstream, like a hidden fuel tank kicking in exactly when the main tank starts running low. Researchers studying traditional diving communities in Korea and Japan, communities where breath hold diving has been practiced for generations, have documented measurable spleen contraction and a real physical increase in oxygen carrying capacity during extended dives. Put all of that together,
and you get the actual range of human breath-holding ability. An untrained person, someone who has never trained this system at all, usually taps out somewhere between 30 and 90 seconds. Elite freedivers, using nothing but focused training on top of this exact same biological reflex every human being already has, have pushed static breath holds past 6, 7, even 8 minutes. It's not a different alarm system. It's not a bigger tank. It's the same equipment everyone is born with, just trained to tolerate the smoke a lot longer before it triggers full panic. Freedivers actually train specifically for this using something called CO2 tables, structured breath hold drills with shrinking recovery time between attempts, deliberately teaching the brainstem's detectors to stay calmer at higher carbon dioxide levels than they naturally would. Here's where this gets genuinely dangerous. If you breathe really fast and really deep for a minute or two before holding your breath, a technique called hyperventilation, you can flush a significant amount of carbon dioxide out of your system before you've even started your breath hold. On paper, that sounds like a smart trick. Lower the smoke level in the room before you seal the door. Buy yourself some extra time, right? This is exactly what a lot of recreational swimmers do almost instinctively before trying to swim the length of a pool underwater, or before seeing how long they can last floating face down. But here's the problem, and it's the entire reason this topic matters. That trick doesn't add oxygen to your system. Your lungs and blood were already about as saturated with oxygen as they're ever going to be under normal breathing. A few extra fast breaths beforehand barely changes that number. What hyperventilation actually does is disconnect the alarm from the fuel gauge. Your oxygen is still draining at exactly the same rate it always would have. You've just disabled the smoke detector that would normally have gone off in plenty of time to warn you, because it's now starting from a level so far below its normal trigger point that it simply doesn't ring in time. So a swimmer who is hyperventilated can keep going, feeling completely fine, right past the point where their oxygen has genuinely dropped to a dangerous level. The level that would normally have triggered that unmistakable burning, clawing urge to breathe minutes earlier. And then, often with almost no warning at all, they lose consciousness. It's called shallow water blackout, and it's exactly why it looks nothing like a normal drowning. There's no struggling, no waving for help, no frantic splashing that a lifeguard or a friend standing at the edge of the pool would immediately recognize as an emergency. There's just a person swimming, and then, without any transition anyone can point to, a person who has simply stopped moving. This isn't a rare fluke or theoretical worst-case scenario. It has happened to trained lifeguards, competitive swimmers, and experienced freedivers, people who understood water better than almost anyone, but who didn't realize they had quietly disconnected their own warning system before entering the pool. It's become common enough and well-documented enough that most competitive swim programs and freediving organizations now flat-out ban hyperventilating before underwater swims. Any serious breath hold training today is done with a dedicated spotter present, someone whose entire job is watching the person in the water and nothing else, not swimming alongside them, not chatting, not looking away for even a few seconds, because a few seconds is genuinely all it takes for a blackout to occur. The lesson that safety experts and physiologists eventually landed on is almost the exact opposite of what most people would instinctively guess. That burning, uncomfortable urge to breathe that shows up partway through a held breath isn't the enemy standing between you and a longer breath hold. It's the single most reliable, most carefully calibrated warning system your body has, tuned over an enormous span of evolutionary time to protect you specifically from the danger you're in at that exact moment. Getting rid of that discomfort doesn't make you safer or more capable. It removes the one thing that was actively protecting you, and it replaces a manageable escalating warning with total silence, right up until the moment your body simply shuts off. It's also worth understanding that humans are, by animal standards, remarkably unremarkable at this particular skill. Sperm whales dive for over an hour on a single breath. Weddell seals in Antarctica routinely stay under for 20 to 30 minutes while hunting beneath the ice. Elephant seals spend the overwhelming majority of their entire lives submerged, surfacing for only a few seconds between dives that can stretch close to 2 hours. These animals aren't using a fundamentally different alarm system. Their chemoreceptors still respond to carbon dioxide the same way yours do. They're simply running a dramatically amplified version of it. Far larger oxygen storage in blood and muscle tissue, a far more extreme drop in heart rate, and a tolerance for rising carbon dioxide that would leave even an elite human freediver in serious distress. Human breath-holding physiology, in other words, is not a fixed law of nature. It's one particular, fairly ordinary setting on a dial that evolution has turned dramatically further in other species, and turned only slightly through years of dedicated training in the small number of humans who compete at the elite level.
So the next time you're at a pool and you see someone off to the side taking a bunch of huge rapid breaths before diving under to swim a lap or see how long they can last, you'll know something almost nobody else standing there does. That's not preparation. That's not a warm-up. That's someone quietly reaching over and turning off their own smoke detector moments before they need it most. If you know someone who swims, dives, or just likes to see how long they can hold their breath in the bathtub for fun, this is genuinely worth passing along. It might be the most useful 30 seconds of information they get all year. Your body was never actually measuring how much air you had left. It was measuring how much longer it was still safe to wait. And now, unlike almost everyone else standing at the edge of that pool, you know the difference, and you know exactly what it looks like when someone else doesn't.